Over 400 borrowed the change, identified as financing terror. Not one, not a single one has been taken before a court. But a young boy, Quadri, was railroaded into prison. What can be more criminal than that? You know something else that Commodore Olaomi told us? He was unapologetic in telling us that these are the works of Fulani jihadists.
Another bombshell from Dele Farotimi. Welcome back, everyone. In this particular video, Dele Farotimi blew hot as he speaks fearlessly concerning the killings in Nigeria. According to him, this is genocide. Like this time around, he called a spade a spade. Like he did not bend mouth at all, just as he always does, right? Nnamdi Kanu has been vindicated once again because Nnamdi Kanu said this like many years ago. Right now, it is happening in our crow eyes. We all can see what is going on in Nigeria right now. Honestly, this is really heartbreaking. Let me allow you guys to watch the full video, but before then, please do wait to subscribe, like, and also leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much for doing so.
I need to myself to speak to a subject that I thought I had brought to a close last week. Remember when I was asking, was it who are the cows? Or whatever, something to do with cows, because we've obviously become a country. So this morning, I've decided I would like to speak to a subject that I can no longer escape walking away from. And it is the topic, accomplices to genocide. Yeah, you heard that. Accomplices to genocide. Who are accomplices? Accomplices are generally used when you're speaking to the commission of a crime or a misdeed or some infraction, and you are an accomplice because you took part. Some will take active part. Some, they took part because they knew and they condoned by their silence. You might be rendered an accomplice simply because you kept quiet in the face of evil. You might be rendered an accomplice because your silence profited you, or you might be an accomplice simply because you were too scared to talk even when you knew the truth. So your fear of livelihood, your fear of yourself, for your life, kept you quiet, or you went further by normalizing the evil because you kept quiet in the face of evil narratives and hagiographic assertions. You become complicit. So I want to talk this morning about accomplices. Remember when your brother or your sister was busy pilfering meat from the pot? You saw it, but you said no word. Broke code. You're an accomplice. You didn't taste any part of the meat, but you're as much a thief as the person who stole it. You know how the West receive all the stolen monies from Nigeria, and then they continue to pontificate and tell us about how fantastically corrupt we are? Don't worry, they are accomplices. The next receiver of stolen property is himself a thief, just as much of a thief as the person who stole. Yorubas will talk about the person who has stolen the good is not as guilty as the fence, the receiver of the stolen property. Accomplices. So when I speak to accomplices, I'm talking about those who have taken benefit either by their silence or their own actions, but they took benefit. They have been rendered accomplices either by their silence or by their active participation in these deeds. So there have been many accomplices, but today I want to speak specifically to the crime of genocide that is going on in Nigeria today. What is genocide? Genocide is when a particular group of persons or people are consistently, persistently attacked with a view to extermination. How do you exterminate a people if not by chasing them off their land? If not by killing them indiscriminately? If not by beheading them and having them buried in mass graves? What else? Exactly what else is genocide? What we're seeing in northern Nigeria today, from Zamfara to Katsina, to the Benue Trough, to the Plateau, in Enugu, in multiple parts, it's nothing but genocide. These are genocidal killings, and it's well documented, even in plain sight, and we're all looking at it, and we are lying to ourselves that is anything other than genocide. You know, there is a Nigerian politician who constantly rubs our face in it. It particularly pains me every time he says it. He says, what will Nigerians do? They don't react. They don't do anything. He says it garrulously. I disagree with his delivery, but the truth is not devalued, even in the mouth of those with whom you disagree. I speak of no other than Rotimi Amechi. You must have heard him multiple times talking about exactly how much we don't do anything, even when we have the information. Has he lied? Has he lied? There have been stories and murmurings, allegations that Obadiah Malafia was killed to silence him for the things he knew and the things he had said. A lot of us, we've only seen the Obadiah Malafia interview because a clip taken from the 33rd minute of a 37-minute interview that he gave to Info News or so. Just a short clip was shown of that. And because of that short clip, we have all been busy Obadiah Malafia. There is a genocide going on. Obadiah Malafia has been killed, or perhaps it was simply his time. I will not engage in conspiracy theory, but the important thing is this: whether he was killed, whether he died naturally, Obadiah Malafia left clear, unambiguous words, and these words are being lived out on a daily basis. For those who have ears, hear me and hear me clearly. Go and find Obadiah's full clip. It's on Info News. Yeah, go to YouTube, watch the full clip. Don't just rely on that 3-minute or 2-minute clip where he was talking about the Boko Haram commander. No, look for the full interviews. Watch them. Educate yourself so that you understand the nature of the evil that has overtaken our land. Obadiah was very clear. He raised certain issues. He said that this is a continuation of the jihad. He was unambiguous in saying so. He also said that the Nigerian state is complicit in what is happening. He didn't say individuals, he said the state. As at the time he was speaking, the president was none other than General Muhammadu Buhari, an unrepentant Fulani Islamist who has no respect or regard for the law or for human lives for that matter. 2 notable genocides took place in his reign. The Buratai murder of the Shia and Lekki Toll Gate. Let us be clear. That was the person in office at that time. He talked about historical roots. And then he spoke about Ladoga. Ladoga is a metaphor for brazen land grab. But I will let you go and listen to Obadiah Malafia on your own. He was an Oxford-trained economist, a first-class brain. He had run for the presidency of this country before. He wasn't involved in idle talk. He spoke, and he spoke his truth. And I personally believe that he died for it. The second witness that I'm going to call in this case is another person. Oh, by the way, Obadiah Melafia rose to become the deputy governor of the central bank. He wasn't engaged in bear parlor talk. He had his wits about him. Go watch him yourself. The second person, I've spoken about him recently as well, is a man known as Commodore Olaumi. He's a spook, a spy, a man who confessed on TV that he had murdered for the Nigerian state, lost his family. He's not one of those that we are meant to see, talk less of hear from. But he came out, I believe, around 2022, just after the NDA attack. Now, understand this. For those of us who grew up on the works of James Hadley Chase, Nick Carter, the fictional world of espionage, we can relate to him and we understand where he's coming from. And he spoke about the Oka abduction, I believe, pretty much like the same thing they did for Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya. I believe they did something pretty much like that in Angola in relation to Oka. Critical thing that you need to understand is this. You don't see those kind of people, and when they come out, it is because their experiences, or to pass their experience, their observation to the government. You find people like them come into TV studios when the situation has gone beyond normal. You know, there is this proverb. It says that while a day, when you start hearing the how complaining about the bulging eyes of his offspring, when spooks, people who had worked in government, come outside to complain about the dysfunction that they are seeing in government, at that point, you know that wahala has happened. Yorubas will say, Akirewu loson. Ewu is a particular kind of animal that you don't see in daytime. Ewu is a kind of rat, I believe. Ewu would ordinarily be found only at night, but when you see it in daytime, you know there is something wrong somewhere. Those who are better with Yoruba would be happy in Nigerians across the length and breadth of Nigeria that they are known to the government. That people in I don't know what's going on this morning. I would hate to imagine that my system is being attacked, but you will manage with me, we'll manage each other. The key thing that Olaumi did was he said that persons in government knows the culprit. Olaumi further told us that there are persons in government. I am aware of the attack on the stream. You can't hear me? Oh, wow. Okay, let me pause for a second and get indication from you guys that we're fine before proceeding. So can you hear me now? Okay. Hanging video and voice. Okay, somebody says they can hear me now. Now you can hear me. So let's continue. We'll manage it. It's fine. So Colonel Olaumi came into the public space and he told us, he said there are persons in government who are the financiers, godfathers of everything that we are saying. That there is no distinction, that we can call them Boko Haram, militants, bandits. That is one and the same. One and the same. Remember that Obadiah had told all of us earlier on that a serving governor in northern Nigeria is or was the commandant of Boko Haram in Nigeria. Now, Commodore Olaumi came out in 2022 and he said very clearly to all of our hearing in a TV station, in alarm, hoping to rise laws up so that we understand the urgency of our situation. That was what brought him out. The same thing that brought out an Obadiah Mailafia that made him speak. This was the same thing that brought out Olawumi. Olawumi is sounding alarm. He's sitting in a TV studio telling you how his own life had been destroyed by his service to our country, how he lost his family in the belief in a federal Nigeria. He defined himself clearly. He explained the challenges to us clearly. That man was screaming in the marketplace because we have blocked our ears. Nnamdi Kanu was saying pretty much the same thing. The only difference is we did not like his voice. We did not like his tone. I didn't like his tone, and I certainly do not approve of his method. But what lies, as Nnamdi Kanu told now, what did he say, or as he said, that Nigeria is not proving on a daily basis? Commodore Llïngs told us that government is shielding people. He told us about the over 400 borrowed the change. Over 400 borrowed the change, identified as financing terror. Not one, not a single one has been taken before a court. But a young boy, Quadri, was railroaded into prison. What can be more criminal than that? You know something else that Commodore Llïngs told us? He was unapologetic in telling us that these are the works of Fulani jihadists. And oh, yeah, I know that some of you might want to argue that, but I'll remind you that in the course of the last week, a certain evil man identified as Garuba Abdullahi Muhammad presumed to speak on behalf of the Fulanis, claiming responsibility for what is taking place in the plateau and labeling it a communal clash. People are carrying armor-piercing, high-caliber war guns, and they are fighting a communal war, a communal clash that has taken you to begin to depopulate land and resettle and rename them, and it's still a communal clash. You're looking for the accomplices to genocide. Garba Abdullahi Muhammad should be one of the first, but then he will be in good company, wouldn't he? Did Bayo Ononuga not issue a statement where he characterized this genocide as a communal clash? Is it other farmer clash? How? Brazen genocide that is happening in plain sight. Olawumi told us that the people doing this are in government. They have been in government for a while. It didn't start with Bulaba. It didn't start with Buhari. They've always been part and parcel of government, but never tolerated and allowed to act with this level of impunity. There was some pretense at restraint. There were pretenses at restraint. There were attempts to use the law like El Rufai used it in Ladoga. But this, where people are driven off their land and the land is resettled by Fulanis who are not even indigenous to the land, and the government is sitting by and the government is talking about communal clashes. When does it become collusion? At what point can we call it collusion? Exactly when is it okay to admit to the fact that these are no longer isolated accidents? When are we going to agree that this is a well-coordinated operation in which a whole lot of people are complicit? Wasn't it in this same country that Buhari's man was telling us that they should give up their land for peace? There was something instructive in the Olawumi interview, which a lot of you also haven't seen, but you've seen clips. You are too lazy to read. You can't be too lazy to watch. I implore you, go and find my Lafia's videos. Listen to Olawumi's interview on channels. All these are readily available on YouTube. These men risked their lives to tell you the truth. I'm risking my life to draw your attention to the truth that they have told you. Why can't you just do something? Go, educate yourselves, become aware of these facts, because when they are done in the Middle Belt, on the plateau, when they are done, they're coming towards the sea. They have to dip the Quran in the waters, whatever the heck that means. Dubai, that was busy prosecuting financiers of terror in Nigeria, is a Muslim country. They are prosecuting terrorists, and you, a supposed secular country, is mollycodding terrorists. You just released 390 terrorists that you are claiming that you have rehabilitated, and we are still asking who the accomplices to genocide are. You don't know T.Y. Danjuma. Let me tell you who he is. T.Y. Danjuma was one of the spearhead of the second coup, the one that killed Ironsi, the one that killed Fajui, and the one that began the pogrom in the north. Today, the same T.Y. Danjuma who rose to become the chief of army staff, who was the minister of defense under Obasanjo when Obasanjo came in 1999. One of the wealthiest Nigerians. No surprise, he was one of the owners of Nigeria. He was on national TV, equally speaking, stridently. He said they collude. He said you should harm yourselves, that you cannot depend on the Nigerian army to protect you. He spoke extensively to the need for individuals to hold on to their right to self-defense. Beautiful words. But let me remind you, the first thing the Nigerian state usually does that will precede most of this genocide, and you have Melafia's word if you go and listen to him, and we have multiple accounts. The Nigerian army or police will declare a curfew. And once the curfew is declared, they will come onto the communities and disarm the communities, remove even bows and arrows, according to my Lafia. Render these people incapable of defending themselves. They're left with nothing. And then these Fulani terrorists would come bearing automatic weapons, high-caliber automatic weapons, against people who have nothing with which to defend themselves. Slaughter children in their beds. You've seen pictures coming out of Irigwe and coming out of Bokos. Slashing them in their bed, killing human beings without compassion. And when they attempt, if they have illicit arms to defend themselves, the police and army will come back, and those who were merely defending themselves become the suspects that the army and police will be parading as the culprits. I'm sure there are exceptions, but this is the general situation. And if you thought that wasn't bad enough, then you don't know anything about Jackson. A farmer, he was attacked on his farm, right there on his farm, by Fulani terrorists. Because who else would go onto a man's land and attack him on his own farm, stabbed him multiple times, and he managed to take the knife from his attacker, and he stabbed his attacker and killed the attacker. I left law school almost 3 decades ago, and I left law practice almost 7 years ago. But I remain a lawyer because of my education. If ever there was a classic case of self-defense, that was one. But what did the Supreme Court do? He was convicted for murder, sentenced to die for defending himself on his own farm against a person who had caused him multiple injuries. No level of defense counsel's incompetence can explain the criminality of the system that will pronounce such a man guilty of murder. But that was what Nigeria did. So if you've taken away a man's guns, his bow and arrow, but he can't even defend himself with the weapon that he had wrested from the hand of the man who set upon him on his own land. How is this so? You've criminalized the right to self-defense. The Nigerian church, yep, we're talking about accomplices. Accomplices. The first of the accomplices that must be addressed here is the Nigerian church. Religion in northern Nigeria is not just religion, it's about ethnic identity in most cases. Those of you who have been fortunate to come across Professor Turaki's books, you would understand the background to religion and ethnic identity in northern Nigeria. For the northern Christian, there is a question of ethnic identity tied into his religious identity. And the first line of defense for him is almost always his religious collective. What has the Nigerian church done since this genocide began? You've fasted, you've prayed, and then what? And then what? What has the church done? How many times and how many pastors, bishops have opened their mouths to speak the truth of what is happening? How many? I know people like Bishop Buba, Elion Buba and Jos have spoken. I know a few, someone like Uka would speak, but then who else? And those are persons based in the north. Sorry, what has the man drinking tea with God had to say about this? What have they said? I was reading of one talking about praying one Catholic bishop or something in Benue. Are they okay at all? Do they even understand that this has rendered them as accomplices in this evil? What has happened to their voices? Why have they made it seem, and why have they turned it into a situation where those who are speaking to what is happening are being made to look like the lunatic fringe? Why are they normalizing evil by their silences? Do they realize that this makes them as guilty as the person's throats? Do they? The loud silence of the pentarascals who are busy endorsing the evil of Muslim ticket. Where are you all now? Where are you all? There will be Saul before David or nonsense. Where are you all? Why has all of a sudden nothing to say again? This evil is happening and you cannot be heard because you are all compromised. You are accomplices. You are accomplices. All of you, you are accomplices in this genocide that is taking place in our country. You are accomplices. You have to be told. The Islamic clerics, those of you who have all this umbrage, you had all this umbrage because 16 persons, and that is not a diminution from the life or humanity of anyone. I condemn without reservation the murder of even one man. But what has happened to all of you since this has been happening? You normalize it. Is it Annie or whatever it is you call people you believe should be Muslims and not Muslims? Kafri. So it's okay to kill them. You want to Islamize Nigeria. I wish you would, the way Dubai is Islamized. Islamize Nigeria the way Saudi Arabia is Islamized, not this race to Kabul. And you are all keeping quiet. How are you different from the Munafiq? You are accomplices to evil. All of you. Because this is genocide. Did Allah tell you? Did Allah tell you that it is His desire that you turn our land into one soaked with blood in His name? Did He? Commodore Olawumi said something instructive that I think we should revisit. He said he expected a turnaround in 2023. He was calculating that the APC would lose power because it was obvious they were not going to win in a free and fair election. He said he expected that we would soon be hearing a lot of revelations. Olawumi was very clear in saying this. But of course, the man who promised to continue the policies of Buhari was foisted on all of us. The jihad Mailafia had told us to expect in 2022 was not necessary because Bulaba would continue the policies, and he has. The same impunity with which killings have been going on in Nigeria with the full protection of the Nigerian state is exactly what is still happening today. He has indeed continued Buhari's policies, just as he promised. The policy of state complicity in genocide has been continued. But there are enough blames to go around, and there are enough accomplices to this evil. What about the political class? The governor of Plateau State wants to probe the killings of cows. He is horribly sanctioning the burial of persons in mass graves without proper identification to understand clearly that what is going on in the Plateau is a genocide where people are being removed from their land and their land are being resettled. This man knows, but is coming out to talk about probing the death of cows. Has he probed the death of human beings, of the children whose throat was slit in their bed, innocent blood being shed in the land? Has it proved the failure of governance that has meant that he merely wails impotently and has done nothing to protect the lives of those he swore to protect? But he wants to probe the murder of cows. Rather like that one in Edo that went all the way to Kanu to go and be prostrating, but has not been heard saying a word about those who have been murdered in Benue, in Enugu, in his own land, in the Plateau. The political class is complicit. We already heard it from Olawumi. We heard it from Mailafia. We heard it from T.Y. Danjuma. All I'm doing is I'm echoing what you have been told by persons you may deem more sensible and less insane. They said it in public. Even the grand doyen of them all has said it repeatedly. Obasanjo has said it repeatedly. You can't trust the state to protect you again. The state is complicit. In the midst of all of this, the governor of Benue, a reverend father, somebody who you would imagine should be heaven focused, is busy banning somebody from visiting IDP camps. They are complicit. How is Peter Obi's visit to IDP camp something that requires the visa from a state? How does that make sense in a situation? The Amotekun sector commander in Oyo State, who walked away, Brigadier General Togun, spoke to multiple frustrations he had to deal with as sector commander. It was these frustrations that led him to resign his commission. And we're still talking about the persons who are complicit or who are accomplices. The government is complicit. The government of Nigeria, both at state and the federal level, are accomplices to genocide. And then, whilst all this was going on, the Sultan of Sokoto came out and said, social media is the terrorist. He had no word to say in condemnation of the genocide being perpetrated across the length and breadth of Nigeria by persons who are clearly Fulanis, of whom he is the traditional head in Nigeria, an influential voice who can bring peace. Indeed, I believe a member of the peace committee headed by General Abdusalam, and all he had to say is that social media is a terrorist. We see Fulani terrorists displaying how much they've taken, confessing to their crimes on the same social media. Has he ever asked the government murders? Has he spoken against the fact that even fellow Nigerians, indigenous Fulanis, who have been here for generations, are also victims of these foreign ones that have been imported according to Baraje in 2014? What did he have to say to that? Nothing. But social media is a terrorist. Your government is telling you that it's headers clash, it's communal clash. Do communal clashes lead to resettlement of people's indigenous land? And the government is looking away as Aboriginal rights are abrogated with violence and their land resettled by foreigners. But of course, you had one telling us that any Fulani from anywhere is a citizen of Nigeria and is welcome in Nigeria. We heard that loud and clear. I believe it was the governor of Bauchi who was saying that on national TV. So why would they come to Nigeria believing that they can indeed settle anywhere, act with impunity, kill anybody, if those who should be calling them to order, the Gumis of this world, the Sultan of Sokoto, will come out and say that social media is a terrorist, when the terrorist is known and clear for all to see. Nigeria is unraveling, and it is unraveling largely because of the complicity, the hypocrisy, rank hypocrisy of the monafics who have claimed that they are Muslims and are doing all this evil in the name of God. This is not in the name of God. The international community, they are complicit and they are accomplices in this evil because they know what is going on and they are pretending not to see. They have calculated that the unraveling of Nigeria is descent into some level of violence advances their own interest in Nigeria. The everyday Nigerian who has refused to get involved, believing that the solution will come when the El Dorado of a split might have happened. Let me remind you, even if Nigeria will split, it wouldn't split peacefully, given its current realities. It is achievable in peace if we ever find the grace to act together in concert, understanding very clearly that what we are faced with is not just state failure. We're not only dealing with state failure, we are dealing with the complicity of the state in the extermination of its own people. The cold calculation I have heard, I was speaking with a member of the Fulani aristocracy. This must have been around 2019, 2020, just before COVID. And as we were talking, I spoke to how she asked me, what do I think would happen with Nigeria going forward? And I said to her at the time that the way the country is going, with the constant state-sponsored or state-enabled wars going on in many parts of its territory, that I was worried about the long-term viability of Nigeria. And she said to me, she said, you are too much of an alarmist and you look at things too myopically. I was like, really? She said, yes. That, don't I realize that worst case scenario, that how many Nigerians do you think we are? I said there should be about, they say we are like 200 million. He said, yeah, right there. Now, pata, let's say 10% dies, another 10% goes off into exile, then things will settle. I felt a cold chill run down my spine because she came across cold-blooded and she just discounted, to my hearing, 20 million lives that she's willing to accept as collateral damage in pursuit of a goal. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but it stuck in my head and I maintained the distance from this person since that time. I started withdrawing because I just couldn't wrap my brains around what she just said to me, that she was willing to accept that much casualty in order to impose a worldview that I know as a fact cannot be sustained because it's found on a lie. If Afghanistan was so attractive, Saudi Arabia would not be traveling in its current direction. Dubai would not have progressed the way and manner it has. All the Gulf Arab states would not be running towards the Dubai direction. But here I am in Nigeria, and some people believe that it is acceptable to wipe out significant portion of our population in pursuit of a strategic objective, which had been clearly stated and sometimes reduced to a cliche: dip the Quran in the sea. This was in my head, and then Commodore Lawumi said pretty much the same things in explaining how he believes that the Fulani Islamist things. He said, as far as they're concerned, certain level of casualties are acceptable. That the way they are thinking is that some people will die, this one will die, and then there will be equilibrium and they will proceed. These are frightening realities. I cannot wish them away. I have offered you nothing that is not already in the public space. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that I have said today that is not already in the public space. I've invented nothing. What I have done is to draw your attention to the truth that are always and have always been available to you. I spent a whole lot of time telling you about how you should get involved in this electoral reform. The last week has left my heart quite heavy, and it's made me quite pessimistic about the long-term future of Nigeria. And I've been left a little more hopeless, if I may say, about our circumstances. But it is critical that I also help you to understand something. Those who would prefer that the status quo remain would also prefer that we despair. Because those who despair do not strive, they accept their sickening reality. We mustn't. I need you all to please take the time, offer your comments, offer your recommendations on the Electoral Act Reform Bill. There is no way that you can fight a system as decadent as ours if you do not find a way, one, explain to the people what the future looks like so that they have something to hope for and behind which to queue. So the Electoral Act Reform Bill becomes important in that relation. Two, Yorubas will say, Ọjọ́ kan là ń jófin kúrò lálàá mi. It is in one day that you establish boundaries. Without underlining the battle line, without drawing it, without setting some sort of point where a line can be drawn, we will end up becoming reactive instead of being the ones to determine the actions. The Nigerian state has done its own for long. And each time that the Nigerian has demanded to be treated as citizen through his franchise, his vote, he has been crushed. That is where we also need to draw the line, and it must be drawn before the election. We will speak more to this in the coming days. The accomplices to murder, to genocide, there are many. and practically each and every one of our institutions of state are complicit. Me and you will be rendered complicit by our silence if we dare to keep quiet in the face of this evil. My Christian brothers and sisters, have a lovely Easter. May all that are died in you be awakened anew. There is a war in front of us. It's up to us to define the battleground, or it will be brought into our homes for all to fight. Spare a thought for those who can't celebrate anything because they have become victims of the rampage going on around our country. May God bless you. Have a blessed week ahead. Amen.
Welcome to